good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Jane Garcia. Big deal, executive function skills. People don't think about these things called executive function skills. These are all of our executive function skills, so emotional regulation, organizational skills, working memory, impulse control, problem solving, self-monitoring, reflection, time management, and in a lot of young people we see time blindness, right? So time management, planning, cognitive flexibility, task initiation and task completion, context switching, prioritizing, all of those are big, huge skills. We don't think about them because we kind of sort of have them. But when we're in the workforce and dealing with people 18 to 24, 16 to 30, thereabouts, we expect them to have it. The kicker is a lot of them don't. And it's a nuisance. It just is. And when you're dealing with people who they can't plan, and you're working with them and they can't plan, you're not just upset, you're vexed. It's vexing, right? And so prefrontal cortex, I have this up here, and this is the part of our brain that is responsible for this executive function skills that we have to have. We gotta have them, right? And so in the workforce, these are some of the things that we may see with individuals who struggle with their executive function skills. So difficulty setting long-term goals, impulsiveness, loss of motivation, mood swings, poor judgment, trouble staying focused, trouble with planning and memory. I was in education for a while, and I saw the decline in these skills, right? I have lots of stories, I will give you one. I worked in education, Department of Correction, very briefly. But one of the young men I met in public school as a 9th grader, very impulsive. And when I went to the Department of Corrections, I was just there very briefly to work as a teacher. Guess who I saw there? My man. Serving time. It is important that we teach parents to teach their children these skills. It is important that we teach our children these skills. We see it in the workforce, and so when they make that transition, my specialty is 18 to 24. I like that age group. I think they're the coolest, because if we can catch them before they make a mess of their lives, then we save just a whole bunch of aggravation, and it's not just that young adult that we're dealing with. It really is the children that they will have who are yet to come. And so these skills are so important. Connections to high school, college students transition into adulthood. Our call to action. If we can integrate brain development principles, theories, during the teen years, young adulthood, if we can integrate them into the teacher preparation program. When I did the teacher preparation program, this was centuries ago, I didn't see it, right? Foster parenting education. I don't know, I think someone here does foster care and so forth. If that can be integrated into the education that they do for foster parenting. Parenting classes just in general, so court-appointed parenting classes, teen mom parenting classes, veteran integration program, in incarcerated youth. And I say veteran, I put an age group for that. Up to 26. We do have veterans who, are pretty young veterans, right? And so, for those of us who are, so I served in the Army for 10 years. For those of us who are part of that community. The veteran reintegration process, if you entered the military 17, 18, 19, when you were supposed to be building those cognitive skills, those executive function skills, because that happens really in full swing, 18 to 24, because that's the last part of major brain developments. And it's really our executive function skills that are being solidified during that time between 18 to 24, right? And so during that, if you have a service member who enters the military 18, 19, 20, that process that should have happened did not happen, because now they're in the armed forces in a closed system where they think for them, what color socks you gonna wear today? A green one. In other words, we didn't even get to decide what we're going to what we're going to wear. And so our ability to think is stunted until we ETS or exit military service. And so I have that, if you're a younger veteran, so I put the age group there, up to 26. Incarcerated youths, again, when you're dealing with people who are incarcerated, they're also coming out of a closed system. And so people don't realize that when you're looking at a veteran and when you're looking at someone who was incarcerated and they're exiting these closed systems, they look the same in terms of their disposition, in terms of how they navigate the world, in terms of their cognitive skills. They look the same. The social perception of who we are is what makes a difference in how we're being treated. Does that make sense? Yes. And so, incarcerated youth in particular, if they can, learn those skills even with adults who were incarcerated, because I know, and I want you guys to think about this, right? If you are talking with someone who was incarcerated and you're trying to explain something to them and they simply lack the capacity to comprehend, and you're thinking to yourself, why can't you understand what I'm saying? They simply can't, because those skills, our executive function skills, we build them. They're built over years. We build them. And when you make that transition 18 to 24, 18 to 26, because remember, policy says a child is grown at 18. Remember that policy? Okay. So now this person have access to all the freedom, all the whatever, they have access to all of that. However, if they lack the skills for their executive function skills, they will have difficulty creating structure in their own lives. And then they will have difficulty navigating their world and making that transition. And so the challenges we see in the workforce stems from this executive function skills or lack thereof. Does that make sense? So again, my name is Dr. Jane, and I represent Executive Function Reboot.